Okay, so let's just dive right in. Ever had one of your heroes let you down? Or, felt like things were just not going according to the plan you had in your head? Well, we're about to jump into a chapter of Matthew that is absolutely packed with that kind of raw human drama. We're talking doubt, confrontation, and a twist you might not see coming.
And that really is the central question here. It's the tension that drives this whole story, and believe it or not, it all kicks off with a message sent from a prison cell.
So get this. This question comes from John the Baptist. This is the guy who lived out in the desert, the one who prepared the way for Jesus, pointed at him and shouted, "He's the one." And now, stuck in a cold, dark prison, even he's starting to have second thoughts.
So yeah, this really sets the stage for our first act. We need to figure out why Jesus' biggest cheerleader, his most vocal supporter, was suddenly wrestling with so much doubt. So picture this. John is locked away in Herod's dungeon, completely cut off. All he's getting are these secondhand reports about what Jesus is doing. And what he's hearing, it's not lining up. John was expecting an axe-wielding judge who would clean house. Instead, he hears Jesus is healing people and, get this, eating and drinking with tax collectors and sinners. So he sends his own disciples to go ask Jesus directly, "Hey, what is going on here?"
But here's the thing. Jesus doesn't just give a simple yes or no answer. Nope. His response basically redefines the entire mission.
Jesus' reply is kind of like a mic drop. He doesn't say, "Yes, I'm the one." He says, "Go back and just report what you see," and then he lists off all these miracles. Now this is so clever, because every single one is a direct callback to prophecies from Isaiah. But here's the crucial part. He only quotes the prophecies about healing, restoration, and mercy. He deliberately leaves out all the parts about God's judgment and vengeance. He's sending a coded message back to John: the kingdom is here, but it's a kingdom of healing, not of holy war. And you have to understand, the way John's disciples ask the question is a huge deal. They use this Greek phrase, ho erchomenos, which means the one who is coming. But this wasn't just a casual term. It was a loaded political title. It basically meant the conquering king who will finally kick the Romans out and restore Israel's glory. They weren't just asking if he was the Messiah, they were asking if he was their kind of Messiah. So you've got this massive disconnect, right? On one side, you have the collective hope for a warrior king who brings political freedom and judgment on their enemies. And on the other side, you have Jesus, who brings mercy and healing and hangs out with the very people that warrior king was supposed to destroy. It's a complete and total paradigm shift. Jesus then finishes his message with this really gentle warning. The Greek word here for lose faith is skandalizomai, which is where we get our word scandalize. It literally means to trip over a stumbling block. So Jesus is saying, blessed are you if I'm not a stumbling block for you. Blessed are you if you don't get tripped up by the fact that I'm not what you were expecting. So you gotta wonder, right? If all the signs were there, if he was quoting their own scriptures, why were so many people just not getting it? Well, Jesus uses this really powerful analogy to explain why. He tells this quick story about kids playing games in the marketplace, and they're complaining, "We played a happy song for a wedding, and you guys wouldn't dance. Then we played a sad song for a funeral, and you wouldn't mourn." The point is, this generation is impossible to please. They've already decided they're just going to sit on the sidelines and find something to criticize no matter what game is being played. And then he lays out the proof. It's brilliant, actually. He says, John the Baptist came along, super serious, fasting all the time, and you said, "He's too intense, he's got a demon." Then I came along, eating and celebrating at parties, and you said, "Look at him, a glutton and a drunk." You see the pattern? It was never about the messenger's style. The audience was just determined to reject the message, no matter how it was packaged. And this is where it gets really intense. Jesus calls out the specific towns where he'd done most of his miracles. These people had a literal front row seat to the divine. They saw the blind see, they saw the paralyzed walk. But here's the takeaway. Information, even seeing miracles, isn't enough to change a heart that doesn't want to be changed. They saw it all, and they still refused to reconsider.
But then, right after this incredibly heavy confrontation, the whole tone of the chapter just pivots. It's dramatic. Jesus shifts his focus and reveals the one thing, the one quality you need to actually understand what's going on.
He prays this amazing prayer out loud. "Thank you, Father, that you've hidden these things from the so-called wise and learned, and you've revealed them to little children." Now, he's obviously not talking about your age, he's talking about your attitude. The wise are the ones who think they have it all figured out, the ones who aren't open to being surprised. The children are the ones who come with humility, who are open and teachable. It's this radical idea that real understanding doesn't come from being smart, it comes from being humble. And that huge revelation leads to one of the most famous invitations in all of history. And it all revolves around this powerful metaphor of a yoke.
So in that culture, the word yoke was often a metaphor for the burden of trying to keep all the religious laws perfectly. Jesus is looking out at the crowds, and he sees people who are just exhausted, completely burned out from trying to be good enough for God. He sees them, and he offers them a totally different way. And this is it. After all the doubt from John, the rejection from the towns, the confrontation with the stubborn-hearted, the whole chapter lands on this moment of pure, unadulterated grace. It's this incredible call to stop striving, stop trying to earn your way to God, and to just rest.
And there is one last beautiful detail here. The Greek word Jesus uses for easy is krestos, but it doesn't just mean easy, it also means kind, gentle, or even well-fitting. Think about it. A master carpenter like Jesus was would have known how to carve a yoke to fit an ox's shoulders perfectly so it wouldn't hurt or chafe. He's not offering a life without work. He's offering a partnership where the work is custom fit for you, a way of life that's kind and gracious, not crushing.
So, the question this chapter kind of leaves us with is a really personal one. What expectations are we clinging to so tightly that they're blinding us to what's right in front of us? What heavy burdens of performance or approval are we carrying around that we were just never meant to bear? Because maybe the real journey of faith isn't about getting everything right, but about being humble enough to accept a surprising, unexpected, life-giving invitation to rest.